Yeah. Um, so I'm live on two computers as I used to be in the past. So hi Diane, lovely to see you. Um, those of you who are on Zoom can talk to me and interact, but those who are on YouTube are just able to participate without being with us live. So this suits some people and this suits other people, and I just have to talk to two different cameras at two different times. So it's lovely to be back, and I've called this session "Welcome Back" because I feel like, well, I haven't taught for 6 weeks, so I don't know if I can teach anymore. I might have lost the skill, um, but but through the time I've been away, I did begin writing the new book, so there'll be another book just in time for Christmas, I hope, which will be called Mindfulness on the Go, which is the companion piece to the other book. And it was really, really interesting sitting and writing and thinking about trying to convey mindfulness to people who may have no interest in sort of mindfulness in a traditional form, such as we often talk about it. So I'll pause to say hi to Rachel. Hi, hi. That, that's all right. And we're all relearning these skills as well. I just said to Colin, I'm not sure if I remember how to run two computers simultaneously and do all that stuff. So yeah, it's fine. Um, so one of the things I really it's very interesting. The process of writing makes you reflect on really what is it you're trying to say. I know that sounds silly because I spend all my time teaching and working with people around the subject, and yet there's something about the precision of writing it down and trying to get the words on a piece of paper to communicate to somebody who um, who may not have context. I mean, when I teach and talk to you, I feel like I have context, so I can relate the things that I talk about back to your everyday life or back to my everyday life. But the thing is, with a book, it goes further and wider, and the examples I might give might not make sense anymore. So what I really came to understand is a couple of things about mindfulness that I kind of wanted to nail for us. And these things might be very clear and very obvious to you already as part of your mindfulness practice, but somehow it was a new discovery for me, or it had a freshness and a aliveness about it that I thought, did I know that before, or have I communicated that before, or have I realized that before? So this is just my way of being clear about what I learned. So the first thing I wanted to say is that a lot of the work that we do, or a lot of the experiments we perform, or a lot of the things I sort of guide us towards is this idea, and often we use this metaphor, that there's you, and then there's this riverbank, or there's the river of thoughts, and that mindfulness sort of is our way of extracting ourselves from the river. We're before we practice mindfulness, we're often just caught up in the river. We're bowled along. We don't even know it. Our thoughts sort of captivate our attention. Our thoughts pull us this way and then they pull us this way. And much as we would like to be able to pay attention, much as we would like to be able to control our thoughts, the thing we learn through mindfulness pretty quickly is that our thoughts are just rampaging through us at all times. And the first practice of mindfulness, if you like, is to pull ourselves away. So to create a distance between ourselves and our thoughts, and to become aware of the raging torrent of thoughts. And we do that in several ways. One is we practice by focusing on the breath, and then within a nanosecond, we're thinking about dinner, and we train ourselves to come back to the breath. And then 2 minutes later, we're thinking about the argument we had with our next door neighbor, and then we come back, and we do this 100 times, 1,000 times, 1,000,000 times. And it's through that repetitiveness and that constantly being distracted, we learn firsthand how sticky our thoughts are and how much it takes for us to pull ourselves away from our thoughts. And we call this sort of equanimity or a dispassionate interest in our thinking. So that's what we train for originally and initially in mindfulness. So what happens next is, as we begin to become less captivated by our thoughts, we have more capacity to pay attention to other things. And so other aspects of our world begin to open up, and some of their sort of natural magical quality, if you like, other aspects of our world begin to open up, and some of their sort of natural magical quality, if you like, begins to shine through. So that's why I do a lot of teaching in nature, because when you begin to pay less attention to your thinking and your thoughts, you have energy and intention to be in nature and see, wow, that's amazing. And even dead things, even not nice things, are amazing. And again, that's something that we discover in our practice of mindfulness, that mundane, ordinary, not beautiful things are kind of magical, special, amazing. They have a beauty, even if they're not beautiful. They have a beauty, and that's sort of the next part of this mindfulness journey is we open up and we absorb more. And at no time through any of this have we tried to stop ourselves thinking or demonize our thinking or try to change our thinking. So one of the things that, of course, a lot of you will have heard other people say is, I can't meditate because I can't stop thinking, or I can't meditate because, 2 minutes after I've started, I start thinking of something else. So people think that meditation means the absence of thought. And again, one of the things that we learn is that we'll probably never stop thinking. Maybe the day we stop thinking is the day we die. But thinking is always arising. Thinking is always here. And that first step of sitting on the riverbank and watching the river, the torrent, the raging torrent of thoughts go by, that is not to stop it, not to divert it, not to change it, but to change our relationship to it. So we've stepped away from it, we've set up this gap, we've become dispassionate. So these thoughts that are raging past us are not going to grab us off the riverbank and pull us along. Now, what I began to discover in the last 6 weeks is that there's another I don't want to call it a step or a stage, but there's another experience there. And that is an integration between those thinking, the raging torrent, and all the other things that we've now opened up to. So this idea of us sitting on the riverbank, looking at our thoughts, being dispassionate towards our thoughts, is kind of a really major, important step in mindfulness. I don't want us to ever forget that is important, because it really stops us being grabbed and pulled. It really helps us to develop a sense of grounding, and it does, from this grounding, absolutely allow the opening up to all sorts of other experiences. But the problem with continuing to think that we are separate from the thoughts and separate from the experience is that we have perpetuated a view of duality that actually is not really very helpful, maybe probably not true, and certainly is not aligned to the very ancient philosophy of Buddhism on which mindfulness is based. So anything that keeps us separate from each other or separate from parts of ourselves, is kind of putting in place this subject-object orientation. And actually, the end point of mindfulness is to shatter that illusion of subject-object. And this is why I'm now beginning to point towards and experiment with, and encouraging you to think about and experiment with, an integration that reintegrates our thinking and all our experiences. Not as a thought, but as an experience. So now, having pulled ourselves away from thinking and got this sense of dispassionate relationship to our thinking, we can use that sensibility, we can use that that modality as a way of now re-entering the stream and swimming along with the flow. So being in the flow. So this is sort of the next stage of mindfulness, if you like, or the full integration of mindfulness, or some would say it's the move towards awakening. And awakening is just, again, the first phase in a fuller journey, which eventually might lead to liberation and the end of suffering. But I want to just notice, because it was something that really struck me over these last 6 weeks, was this idea that the less one pulls away from thinking, the more one has the opportunity to integrate thinking in a way that is completely different to where we started, which is, thinking is grabbing you, thinking is sucking you in, thoughts feel like they're real, thoughts feel like there's substance, thoughts feel like they're things that we have to do something about. And this reintegration, or this integration back into all our experience, our whole experience, is including thinking. It's including the arising of ideas, the arising of concerns, the arising of reactions, but keeping that sense of equanimity that we've developed in the first stage. So, a bit esoteric, and I've come straight in at the 1,000 miles an hour. Um, but it was such a fundamental shift again for my understanding and for what I was trying to convey. And I just really was bursting to share it with you because I felt like I hadn't really captured that idea sufficiently well. And I'm still not sure in speaking about it for the last 15 minutes whether I've captured it sufficiently well either. But I wanted to give you this idea that, you know, beyond this um, new relationship with thinking, there is another new relationship with thinking, which is what I'm going to describe as integration. But it's an integration with all experience. Thinking is now just as important as hearing. Thinking is just as important as tasting. Thinking is just as important as uh, proprioception or touch. So we don't reify thinking, we don't denigrate thinking, we just understand that all of these experiences are life and we're in the flow of life. So, with that in mind, we're going to do some practice and then I will turn off the YouTube stream and I'll have a conversation with anybody who's on Zoom who wants to have a chat. So, we're going to sit here for about 15 a generous 15 minutes. So sit with your feet on the ground, your bum on the seat. If you want to, actually, I just need to stretch and jiggle my shoulders. So please feel free to make sure you're aligned. Make sure you've got, a nice fluffy. If you are cold, put a fluffy around you. Lie down if you need to. Take a couple of extra deeper breaths just to feel into your body, feel into your belly. Allow your mind to settle within your body. Close your eyes if you'd like to. If you're lying down, please keep your eyes open but with a soft gaze. And spend a few minutes just getting comfortable, getting settled, getting grounded. Really allow yourself to come to stillness. If it's helpful to do something with your mind in these early stages, put your mind into your feet, feel into the floor, feel into the gaps between the toes. So in a way, what we're doing is we're keeping our mind busy, but now we're keeping our mind busy in a different modality, which is the modality of sensing, the modality of being present inside the body in a specific place. And we often refer to this as an anchor point. So use your feet, if possible, as your anchor point for your mind. So what you're doing is you're setting up a still point in your practice, point that you can return to again and again. This is the point where you can say, welcome back to yourself. Every time you get lost, every time you get distracted, every time you get sleepy, every time you get anxious, stressed, worried, coming back to this anchor point, which is a place of stillness, place of grounding. And when you're ready, begin to open up all your senses to what's present in this moment, without giving precedence to any single experience. So sound is just sound. Taste is just taste. Touch is just touch. Stripped bare of any judgment, stripped bare of any expectations, stripped bare of any pushing or pulling and trying to manipulate or change the experience. All you're doing is creating a level playing field on which all the senses can dance. All the senses can be at play all at once. If at any point you get overwhelmed or it becomes too much for you in some way, just return to that simple practice we began with, which is the anchor point. And you've got this idea of having a flat approach to all the senses. No one sense gets ahead of you, no one sense captivates you. You can also treat thinking in this way. So it's just a simple move to integrate thinking. It's no more important than smell. It's no more captivating than the feel of your clothing on your skin. all of these data inputs can be just treated through the same filter of here it is, and welcome, and here's the next thing, and welcome, and here's the next thing, and welcome. So you're setting up this idea of a continuous data flow. And as you get more concentrated and more relaxed and more used to this, things can speed up or things can slow down. Doesn't matter which. It becomes like sitting at the checkout of the supermarket. But, 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 next, next, next. And of course, if you get carried away with anything, just come back. Go back to the anchor, get yourself grounded and settled again, and then reintegrate with wide open awareness and integrating more facets, more modalities. If you want to really play a game, you can cycle through all the senses as different modalities. So you can just switch all your attention to touch, switch all your attention to taste, smell, sound. You can even do sight without opening your eyes. Just look at the back of your eyelids. You can do proprioception in terms of how am I sitting, where am I sitting, and then you can integrate thoughts as another sense. And of course, if none of that suits you, just go with the simple breath meditation. So just a few more minutes. And the last few moments of this meditation, in whichever way serves you best, whatever you feel most moved to do. And very slowly, in your own way, begin to deepen the breath. Begin to bring some movement to your physical body. Take your time and, in your own way, transition back to eyes open and back to the group. And I'll say thank you very much for joining me on YouTube and streaming live. It's great to have you. I can see people there, and I appreciate you being here. And I'd love you to like this and comment on this and share this. And if that's okay with you, I will see you next week, and I'll say goodbye on YouTube right now. And we'll have a dialogue on the other computer. Thanks for coming. Bye.